Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you were here, welcome to Everybody's a Critic, our first episode. Woohoo! We have a podcast, you guys. How awesome is that? Because that's not what the internet has enough of. People talking about movies online. So we are here to fill that void. I am
Here, here.
Jamarco Shaw, joined by my esteemed panel. We have Tim Reyes over here, or over
Hello,
here,
hello.
as the camera says, and then we have Stephen Dinkins down here. Hello, Stephen. And then
Hello.
least, we have my brother, the one and only Brandon Horn down over there. Hello, hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Whoop, whoop.
Good, good, sir.
Good, good. So happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're here, we are here basically to give you a little info on some of our favorite directors, some of their greatest films, or some of their not so greatest films, as we like to call this segment, the Director's Dive. And today we're coming out the gate hot. We're coming strong, pause, with one of the greatest directors right now, in my opinion, doing it. Of course, we're talking about Edgar Wright. Of course, if you know Edgar Wright, then you know he has a very specific style of filmmaking, very quick, very frenetic, very quirky, geeky, a pop culture wet dream, if you're a fan like myself. So I just want to start with somebody that I admire, somebody that has almost no misses, if I could say that. And then we'll start trashing some of the directors you love or hate. But before we get down to that line, a little back on information on Edgar Wright, born April 1974. Started out like every other director, just started making Super 8 movies. His first film was in 1995 called A Fistful of Fingers, a poor independent Western homage. Tried looking for it, couldn't find it. Just starts out hustling in the 90s, meets a guy named Simon Pegg. They work on a show called Spaced. They hit it off. There's a specific episode that Wright directs where Simon Pegg's character has hallucination and he dreams of fighting in a zombie apocalypse after a round of Resident Evil 2. And thus, this inspires the idea for the beloved classic zombie rom com Shaun of the Dead. And what else can I say about Shaun of the Dead except for everything I'm about to say right now? It basically puts Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and Edgar Wright on the map. The UK still loves this. I think the UK has a bigger precedent than it does in USA because it's just so on the money with the stereotypes. But here it caught a wildfire. It grossed 30 million, and if it's opening weekend, 9 weeks to shoot, and the rest is history. So, fellas, do you guys remember the first time you guys saw Shaun of the Dead?
I don't remember exactly what year it was. I know it was definitely a couple years after it had come out, and actually started to gain a lot of fame and stuff like that. But I definitely remember the first time I watched it and just, I mean, there weren't that many comedies, especially at that time for me, that just had such a steady flow and such a great chemistry
Mhm.
between the characters and things like that. It's just every line is so well delivered. Everything seems so well thought out, but at the same time, so off the cuff. And it's a very rare mix of energies that you get that really kind of make the perfect storm of comedy. So definitely right on the money
Absolutely.
with that one.
How about you, Stephen?
So I don't remember exactly when I first watched it in full, but I will say that it definitely struck me as different from a lot of other horror movies. Um, After having been exposed to horror films at possibly a too young age, because older siblings, um, I was a bit of a wuss with certain things unless they were significantly, had other aspects going for them. So Shaun of the Dead definitely grasped me with all of the humor and just the fact that it doesn't let up. You don't go more than 2 minutes of its runtime without a laugh of some sort. Like Edgar Wright does not waste any time with it. So even though I wasn't as into directors and hadn't linked as much of what I did, I think Hot Fuzz might have been out by the time that I saw Shaun of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Not to nod at
Same
any
here.
future developments with the same director, but it definitely but
Coming
no, it,
soon.
it definitely put yeah, it definitely put Simon Pegg on my radar, and just like him and Nick Frost as kind of just like a powerhouse duo. I mean, the two just play off each other so well with all of the like Tim mentioned, the frenetic dialogue, but also just kind of the slapstick element to some of the humor. They're very physically humorous people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I really admired that in their roles and kind of took some of that for granted Just a lot of people take that for granted with comedies in general. But then you see how some of their abilities and mannerisms fuel their other performances in other genres. So I digress a bit there, but it definitely gripped me for being a horror comedy and that it still had heart at the center of it. It wasn't gory just for the sake of being gory. Some of it served a humorous purpose. So I really liked the way that the sets were constructed and how everything played out from there.
Absolutely. What about you, Brandon? You remember your first time?
I don't like the rest of you remember, but I do recall that I didn't see it. Like it wasn't like my first Edgar Wright movie. Like I think I was pretty late to the game by the time I saw this. Like I'd already seen like Scott Pilgrim, of course,
Mm-hmm.
Hot Fuzz, and maybe even maybe even Baby Driver before I saw Shaun of the Dead like in full.
Mm.
Um, and so like I had always like known of this movie, like it was in the zeitgeist for me. Like, um, of course, Marco like probably had told me about it 100 times before I actually watched it. But yeah, no, it was one of those times like when you watch a movie and you're like, oh, okay, I immediately get the hype. I get why this is so
Mm-hmm.
beloved. I get why like this is people say this is like some of their favorite zombie movies. And like yeah, I immediately just loved it and like loved Edgar Wright's style even more. Like especially seeing like this being his first movie, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just makes every other movie after it just like I get like a totally different kind of view on it. So yeah, I really just really enjoyed my first watch of it, since it was like so late in the game after it.
I agree, and I'm right there with you. I think, yeah, because this came out 2004, which is why we're starting with Edgar's, the big 20th anniversary of Shaun. And I got to tell you, I was a late bloomer when it came to horror. I was a scaredy cat. So, and 2004, looking back, was kind of like a formative year looking back for movies because you had like a lot of heavy hitters like Eternal Sunshine, Spider-Man 2, and Mean Girls. And this kind of
Absolutely.
this kind of like struck out as something fresh, not only to horror fans, but to comedy fans as well. I don't think we've had like a better UK transplant of comedy since like Monty Python. So I think what
Right.
Edgar Wright, all these guys have done for just UK comedy is just shot it up to the moon. And now we got guys like all your great Brits. Everybody from Ricky Gervais to all those guys just came on over, and nothing's been the same since. But now
Right.
we digress. And if you haven't seen Shaun of the Dead, first of all, why are you watching this? But secondly, if you haven't seen it in a long time, then we'll just give you a little brief synopsis. Of course, Simon Pegg plays Shaun. He's a loser. He's in his 30s. He's going through a breakup with the beautiful Liz, who just wants him to be present. His best friend Ed is pissing everybody off, from his girlfriend to his girlfriend's friends to his roommate. And just when you think things couldn't get worse, a zombie outbreak breaks out in London, and Simon has to, not Simon, Sean. Simon Pegg plays Sean. See how you get confused with actors? He's so good at it. Like it was written for him. Simon Pegg himself said he wrote it for
Sean Pegg.
himself. So,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So, when it comes to the big apocalypse, Sean and his best friend Ed team up to save the mom, go to the Winchester, save Liz, kill Philip, and wait for all this to blow over. Now, of course, there are some hiccups along the way. There's Liz's douchebag. What's his name? David. Like
That's
the worst character. And then, of course, there's Diane, and then his mother, and Philip, and of course, a whole bunch of angry zombies. And let's just get into some scenes. Let's start with one of my favorite scenes here. The beginning, the how everything is syncopated in rhythm with the title sequence. I thought that was a
mhm.
very neat. Even as a kid, I was like, "Oh, that's neat." And you start
Yeah,
to
it was
see
well put
like
together.
the whole film. Yeah, and the thing about Edgar Wright films is that they're filled to the brim with Easter eggs. So when you watch the film, you see all the people that were spotlighting during the credits will become zombies later on throughout the film, which lead to some very funny gags, including Bloody Mary. Now, let's talk about one of my another favorite scene of mine. We got the record throwing scene. I felt a little offended personally. I was like, I like the Batman soundtrack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't think that was necessary, but of course the rule of the game is you got to kill the zombies, got to shoot them in the head, no matter what. And yeah, it's a fun time. Is there any favorite scenes from you guys that you love so much?
So a couple for me that I actually wrote down while I was watching through. Obviously, the well, Mom, have you been bitten? No, but Philip has. Oh, okay. Has she been bitten? No, Philip has. Oh, okay. Nobody cares about Philip, right? And that whole thing is just absolutely just well delivered, so funny every single time. Always makes me laugh. Another one, the little doppelganger scene with
I'm gonna have
Yvonne's
to go
group,
kill my
where
stepdad.
her and her boyfriend, and you get to see our boy Martin Freeman in there. Um, you know, just a
Hey.
really funny scene. Obviously not really a lot said, but it's just that kind of little awkward tension between these two groups that obviously see like they're mirror images of each other, and I'm a big fan of that kind of thing in comedy. And then
A lot of
obviously
great
right after
visual
that,
gags here.
yeah, and then right after that, oh, what's the matter, David? Never taken a shortcut before, and then the immediate fence falling over. That slapstick element, like Stephen mentioned earlier,
Big gate
and then
gag.
oh yeah, it looks like that. Those were the top ones that I could think of that I wrote down.
I'm glad you brought up Philip. Shout out to Bill Nighy, who, and of course, Martin Freeman. The two of those will become featured players in this Cornetto trilogy that they set up.
Absolutely.
So this will be the first of this trilogy. And do you guys know why it's named after the Cornettos?
No.
Treat, right? The little tasty
Yeah,
treat.
the sandwich.
Ice
I
cream.
think, or ice cream.
Edgar Wright said that was their go-to hangover cure.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Cornetto
so
before I
after,
die.
yeah, so of course, and they all symbolize three things. Well, we'll get to that when we get to the end of the Cornetto trilogy. Back to Shaun, of course, one of my other favorite scenes is them walking from the bar singing White Lines. I just think that whole scene going from them drunk and over breakup to them breakdancing in the room. And then another great player in this movie, Pete Serafinowicz. I hope I said that right.
Serafinowicz or
He
something.
plays
Yeah.
the annoyed. Yeah, he plays the annoyed roomie Pete, the very strict one. You might recognize him. He was the strict guard in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Just really funny guy and really great at playing the straight guy until, of course, he meets his demise. Now, throughout this film, now that I brought up Bill Nighy, I can bring up this question. Is Pirates of the Caribbean a zombie movie?
No, skeletons are different than zombies.
So
The first one, no.
So I don't know, because it's like it kind of blurs the line between ghosts, zombies, like wraiths. So I mean, it definitely involves those supernatural elements, particularly in like the second one, Dead Man's Chest. But
not
even then, yeah.
That like it makes me think: is Jason a zombie then? Like especially like in those later movies.
Yeah,
Jason
totally.
of Voorhees clan. Yeah.
Why would he not be?
Oh.
All right, back to there you go. Some more fun film scenes for me. I mean, of course, the iconic ending set to Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now" when they're all beating the guy in syncopation, which would become a trademark of Edgar Wright. We would see that later down the line with Baby Driver syncing up visuals with audio and doing it so well. If you pay attention, you will find a little bit of that in each of one of his movies. But I always love that. And I think this is the movie you could say put Queen back on the map for a minute because they weren't. People think Queen was just always good, but no, they took a little lull. So a lot of people credit this movie for bringing Queen back to people's imagination. I'm going to put the clip right now. And just the whole is made with such a labor of love. There's reference to every zombie movie. One of my favorite references is like Tim said when it comes to seeing when they're calling his mom and calling Shaun's mom, and Ed goes, "We're coming to get you, Barbara," which is a reference to the original Night of the Living Dead, made in 1968, directed by the late great George Romero, who himself said loved this movie. So, and even gave Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright cameos in Land of the Dead. That was the one where zombies were smart. That was the one where the black guy, the zombie, was leading the crew. we'll get into a whole thing in October. But as far as for you guys, what are some things that held up for you while we were watching this, and what didn't age so well for you?
Well, for me personally, I think the way, I mean, we're kind of talked about it already, but the way Edgar Wright like frames the story or like sets up the story, like I love that whole opening that you mentioned, but as well like when the zombie invasion gets started and like the way like he leans into the tropes like so heavily, so well. Like you've seen a zombie movie before, but even if you haven't, like this movie gives you every trope in like kind of the best way. But I love like Shaun like watching the news, but he doesn't like watch it. He like flipping through the channels, but they're still expositing like what's happening to like the people. Like everything is like they're literally being eaten alive.
Yeah.
So I really think that like just kind of
There's
style
panic in
from
the
Wright.
streets of London.
Yeah, exactly. I love that kind of stuff. Like just goes with Wright. Like I feel like he doesn't waste time. Like you kind of just like know what's going on with the movie. Like it goes with like what you guys said. Like each joke is like happening. Like you're laughing almost every minute. So like I feel like that aged pretty well with this as a zombie movie and a horror movie in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steven.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So yeah, and then touching on your acknowledgement of the opening, Demarco, and then Brandon mentioning the initial zombie outbreak, I really loved, and what holds up for me, with all of the Easter eggs is how you essentially have two versions of the same opening scene, both before and, or rather, just ominously as an audience member viewing it, you know that there's about to be a zombie apocalypse because it sets the events of the movie in motion. But I love Shaun being shown as just completely oblivious to everything going on around him. So you essentially have a mirror version of the same opening scene, but this time with some of the same people you saw, just who you think are background extras. Now they are zombies and they're still mulling about in their same way. And Shaun is just going through his morning routine. He's got his music in. And because he ignored the news broadcast that warned him of everything going on, uh, he's just completely going on about his day as though none of it is happening. At the same time, had he paid attention to it from the get go, he might not have gotten dumped by his girlfriend. He might, what I mean? So it's like all these other things wouldn't have happened. And for that reason, he also could have been susceptible to being killed by a zombie himself on the front end.
Right.
So I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I guess the only thing really that didn't hold up for me is just, kind of a small nitpick, and that's just toward the end, that Nick Frost gets. But it's in the script.
Yeah,
It's just one
yeah.
of
I don't
those
want to
like,
bring that
okay,
up.
well that didn't really serve the plot in any way. But at the same time, I feel like that's just, it goes to show how much I admire Edgar Wright, that that's like one of the only things that I could think about when as we were preparing for this, thinking about things that didn't hold up or to nitpick, like if I had to nitpick something, that's what we go
Right.
for. But I really like, again, like I said and Brendan said, just about how the timing of everything, and how as much of the exposition was shown just through news broadcasts and things happening in the background. Edgar Wright really just doesn't waste time with a lot of his movies. Like the movie is pretty rewatchable, considering it's like a good chunk shy of 2 hours. Like this was another thing you mentioned about 2004 in general, Marco, is just that a lot of movies, especially around then, on TV with commercials, remember cable, could fill like a 2.5 hour time slot, because the movies themselves capped out around an hour and 45 minutes. So this is like,
Right.
just right under that. Doesn't feel like it wastes any time. So just really admire a
Perfect
lot of those
lazy
things about it.
Sunday viewing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like
Go
for
ahead, Steve.
myself, just kind of agreeing with both of them, and like Steven said, there really isn't any major thing that I could find that I could nitpick that didn't age well for me, and that was one thing that I was pleasantly surprised about with my rewatch, was that it's aged very well as both a comedy and like a zombie horror-esque movie, because the special effects weren't anything too crazy, so you didn't need any kind of weird CGI that was going to age really poorly. It's just the simple bash of zombie, blood spatter. That's it. Like, and you keep it simple, and something like that, you can watch it, year over year. And, for me, I'm one of those people that like funny is funny. So a comedy, as long as I'm not watching it, every other day or something like that, it's going to continue to be funny when I watch it, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, etc. And so, Shaun of the Dead is definitely one of those movies where I feel like because it's in that comedic masterpiece genre, it's just one of those ones that I will be able to watch year over year, and it's going to continue to hold up. And one of those ones that like the special effects aren't going to be so cheesy that they take away from the experience of watching even 10, 20 years down the line like we are now. So yeah, I think it's one of those ones that's held up very well in most regards.
As someone who just watched Tron Legacy today, you talk about special effects not holding up very well. CGI Jeff Bridges' face. But I digress. Brandon, what do you think about this movie? Are there any scenes that you didn't care for? I only have one nitpick, and it's just like a pet peeve of mine, like the scene where all the kids are chewing gum. That just grosses me out.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you on that one.
That's nasty.
I feel like
Just
all them
that's
snacking.
gross.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I don't think they're like you guys mentioned. Like I can all those nitpicks that you guys mentioned. I could definitely piggyback on, but like any other ones that like stick out to me, I don't really think so. Like nothing too bad that like just kind of like stays in my mind as like ooh I don't like that. So I feel like this movie is pretty good about that, especially when a lot of the movies you mentioned, like Mean Girl, for example, a lot of that stuff doesn't age too well for 2024
At all.
Right.
So I think for this movie coming out early 2000s, like definitely as a comedy, like a lot of stuff aged very well.
Yeah, and I would say that it aged a little bit. Like the montage that Stephen was talking about, where Shaun is walking out. I was trying to pull it up, but YouTube doesn't want to be a friend today. But yeah, I kind of got flashbacks to COVID watching that scene.
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
the slow. One of the best things about this movie for me is just the slow build of it all. How you just kind of see people passing out and people coughing. One of my favorite scenes is when Shaun is at work and he's flipping the channels, and it's just like the news is over and over again. You're just like, because that's kind of how it was. We're just like, what the fuck is this? And we all know how that turned out. But there's a lot of cultural relevancy, and especially because they don't tell you what the zombie outbreak is, but Edgar Wright said it was enraged monkeys. So that gave me a few little flashbacks to the good old time in 2020. Let's talk about some cameos.
Planet of the Apes tie-in.
There you go.
Later, wasn't that monkeys?
Yeah, Simian flu, baby.
Right.
We're almost there.
Same universe, right?
Let's talk about.
Yep.
There you go. Let's talk about some fun cameos. Tim brought up the fun Martin Freeman one, but one of my favorites is at the end with Coldplay. Quick little Coldplay joke where they're doing a zombie zombie as they called it. I would go to that show.
A little benefit concert, yeah.
I would too, yeah.
Very curious to see on the zombie lineup. I would go to that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then one of my favorite little fun facts is during the record throwing scene, Sade was the only one who was okay with making fun of their music. She was the one who's like, yeah, you can throw that first album, Diamond Life, which, come on, that's a classic. But
yeah, it is a classic. Absolutely. Felt like sacrilege watching that part.
Like, is it a crime to throw a Sade record? I'm like,
right. You know what? There's my nitpick. There's my nitpick.
Don't throw Sade records at all. That's
absolutely not. No. That would be my prized possession that I just like wear on my back like a sword, just
absolutely
shotgun out.
And here's another fun. There's a bunch of influences. Like I said, there's jokes all over. When Shaun says somebody's out sick, says Ash is out sick. Definitely a little nod to Sam Raimi and Evil Dead, as you can tell by the quick cameras and cutaways. And it's a perfect movie from beginning to end. Now my dogs have an opinion. What do you guys think of Shaun of the Dead? Did you like it? Thank you. But yeah, so I think we covered everything, man. It holds up. We love talking about it. It's bloody. David got what he deserved. David was the worst character.
Oh, absolutely.
Which reminds me of one of my favorite quotes when Shaun is trying to get Liz out of the apartment, and she's like, "You called David Diane a failed actress. That is untrue. I did not call Diane a failed actress." just the worst kind of character. When it sets up tropes like Brandon said, like a zombie movie, like the biggest asshole, the biggest jerk off. He's gonna get it the worst.
Yeah.
And
Every time.
He's gonna have somebody who gets bit who's not telling the rest of the group.
Yep.
Poor Barbara.
No, mom didn't get bit. It was Philip.
Poor Barbara.
Yeah.
Oh, mom got bit at the end. Remember?
Yeah.
They had to shoot her at the emotional crux of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I also feel like
And
that's
David,
just I love how that has become its own thing in like pop culture, just like as a scathing insult for somebody. Like, yeah, you look like if a zombie apocalypse happened, you would be the type of person to get bit and not tell anybody until it's too late.
Yeah.
You know, now other people like have to die thanks to you.
Right.
You know, like we could have
You would
handled it.
put
It
the
wouldn't have been
whole group at
fun, but
risk.
you know, it would have been more noble had you disclosed.
Yeah.
So another parallel to COVID, like, you know, the people who go
Yeah.
to multiple parties in a night, and then on the back end they're just like, oh yeah, you know, sure.
Not going to tell you until they cough in your mouth from 2 feet away.
Right. Several days later. Oh, by the way, I tested positive for COVID the other day. Like, dude.
No, get away from me. See, zombie apocalypse still relevant. Get out over. Shaun of the Dead might have been predicted something.
And it's like we saw just in real life and in real time how easily something like that could have happened, you know.
Right. And
thankfully the monkeys were in check, but yeah.
Thanks a lot, monkeys. All right, so Shaun of the Dead. One other fun fact for me, there was a sequel called From Dusk Till Shaun, which unfortunately never got made, but was brought back to life as an inside joke to a little movie called Into the Spider-Verse. If you look back I think it's in Miles' room, he has a From Dusk Till Shaun poster. So Edgar Wright gave him the okay to use that. So shout out to Spider-Verse, shout out to Phil Lord, Chris Miller. Maybe a future episode, maybe. But I think we're good here, fellas. So let's just, let's knock this bad boy out.
Finally, we haven't done the 2024 fantasy recast.
Oh, good year.
So I have my list. I have my list ready to go. I don't know about y'all.
Oh shit!
Are we keeping it British? I mean, I guess part of it kind of has to be.
That was my question.
Yeah.
That was my question.
So I did keep it British, although there are actors in there that are not British, but I know could pull off British.
Okay.
But most of this cast is British. So here's mine. So for Shaun and Ed, I'm bringing Tangerine and Lemon back from Bullet Train Baby, Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry.
Let's go.
They were just such a great pair comedically in that movie, and I feel like they could bring that same kind of Edgar Wright-esque energy that exists in that trio of Edgar and Simon and Nick Frost. For Liz, our girl Carey Mulligan. That's true, yeah. Aaron Taylor Johnson never has to play the loser, so give him one for the common man.
Technically Kick-Ass, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But that was so long ago, nobody really remembers that.
Exactly. Everyone just fixates on his
guy, and everyone's like, "Ooh,
weird marriage."
But yeah, so those are my two for the lead boys. For Liz, I have my girl Carey Mulligan. For David, this is another American that I feel like could pull it off. Bill Hader, just so good at playing that just snobby fucking asshole prick. I feel like he could just knock that out of the park. For Diane, our girl Mia Goth, our scream queen.
Ooh.
Okay.
For Pete, I have Ewan McGregor because I feel like he could absolutely play that straight guy, pissed off, roommate. And then for Philip and Barbara, bring my boy Daniel Day-Lewis back, please. One more. Oh
my God.
And for Barbara the Queen, Helen Mirren.
It's funny you say that. Helen Mirren passed on that role.
Fucking it.
Wild.
I did not know that.
I would love to catch up with her after that to see if she regrets it. Because occasionally you have people who see that after they see the finished product, which I understand when you just have a pitch and a synopsis on the front end, you already have this, this idea of your career trajectory in your mind. And you're like, oh no, I'm a serious actor. I don't da-da-da-da. And then you find out movies like this that have, just a lot of heart and then also just seem like they were a bunch of fun to be a part of.
Right.
So I wonder,
really strong cult following,
Right.
I missed the boat on that one.
Yep.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I'm gonna keep it. I always like to put black people in movies because I'm black. So if I were going to do Shaun and Ed, I would pick as Shaun, I think somebody needs to be a little more relatable. I would pick my man from Snowfall, Damson Idris, and
Okay.
as
Okay.
Ed, I you know what? I'd pick a different kind of lane for Ed. I'd go Boyega. I'd like to see those two bounce off each other.
I was thinking
Like
Boyega for Sean, so yeah, that works.
Boyega, because he kind of played the same kind of loser character in They Clone Tyrone. So I kind of see that
Okay.
image.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
And if y'all was seeing They Clone Tyrone, please watch that. And
Great movie.
I thought you were gonna go Florence for Liz. I feel like that would be really fun.
I almost did.
I know she can't be in everything. I know.
Right.
And as David, who's a good Brit I like? There's a lot of good British people. I'd probably go have a little Harry Potter Easter egg and have somebody from there. Probably like I love to see Daniel Radcliffe as an asshole because we always see him as a good
Yeah.
person.
That'd
Say
be great.
otherwise, I'd say Tom Felton since he was already Malfoy for
There you
8
go.
movies.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'm putting me as Diane. That's really
Just
good.
the way he
'cause,
says
like,
Potter, like it sounds like a slur. Just, just,
hard
I
take.
mean, that he could easily be the asshole roommate for that reason.
There you go. And as Philip and Barbara, I'm picking two other British OGs. I'm going with the Dame Judi Dench and
Ooh. Okay.
Okay.
my boy from Game of Thrones, Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister.
Oh, I love it.
So good.
So they make that happen. Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg say they would denounce a remake. By the way, so we're just spitballing. Y'all ain't got to make this
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
We're just
Imagination land.
having fun. But they
Don't
said that
don't
movie
don't
was
cancel
so
this Edgar Wright if you ever see this. But
Edgar, we
Yeah,
love
please.
you. Come to the show. But no, they said that movie was really important to make because like it's their first film. They built this from the ground up, and Simon Pegg actually owned a pub like the Winchester they used to go to all the time after some shit would happen, a breakup, losing a job. So at the end of the day, this movie is just about two friends just hanging out at the bar, just trying to reconnect, just trying to get through this thing we call life. And I think it ages well because at the end of the day, nothing's more important than friendship. What's at the end? Shaun and Ed playing video games.
Yes, sir.
Ed's a zombie, but he
yeah,
knows how a PlayStation controller works.
you can still crack open a cold one with the boys, even when your boy is a cold one.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
All
Put
right,
that on the
I think we're getting the
poster.
show back
I'll
up.
see myself out. I'm just gonna.
Okay, so Shaun of the Dead 2004, Edgar Wright, rank them 1 out of 10. Where do you rate this movie? Tim, we can start with you.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 because obviously, it's not a movie that's focused on like a super deep story or crazy high level acting that's going to evoke emotion throughout top to bottom, front to back. But it is a movie with a lot of heart, especially for a comedy and slash horror zombie movie. And it's one that holds up, like I said, just super well after so many years. Just makes me laugh to this day, no matter what. I can just kind of throw that on. It's one of those comfort movies. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10.
Very good. Steven?
Um, are we allowed to do half ratings? Because not to not to one up Tim there, but I was kind of waffling between 8 and 9 myself, especially because if we are trying our best to be objective, which is impossible, as critics, again we have to find some things to nitpick. And I'm sure that there were people who are paid to review these kind of things who absolutely lambasted the film. But I will say, just as far as becoming a pop culture phenomenon and just having I feel like for Simon Pegg's first outing as directing a feature film, he knocked it out of the park. So, again, if they can't all be 10 out of 10, then I'd give it a very solid 8.5 out of 10. It's definitely great. It's easily rewatchable if for no other reason than like during the month of October every year. Just another, no brainer. Pun not intended, but on the back end now it is. I'm retconning it. Just another Halloween film that you can put on, and it's one that I feel like is a crowd pleaser without selling out. If what I mean. Like you can watch it with your friends who are super into movies, with the people who aren't super into movies. Some people like other aspects of it better than others. I feel like it's just something that's very safe to put on for groups of people, but still has a lot of integrity in how it was made.
Right.
Brandon?
fine.
Um,
I really enjoy this movie. Like I don't get tired of it. We talked about it earlier. Just like it's so rewatchable, and like I feel like that's so important. Like if you're a comedy, because like so many comedies you can watch and be like, that's I'm good. Only I need to watch that once. But like this, one,
Yeah.
like
yeah,
you said, like I this pretty much every Halloween. Like I have to. I feel like I have to. Especially if you're doing zombie movies. Like this has got to be one that you
it's a
watch.
must see.
Exactly, and I feel like Edgar Wright, Peg, Frost, all the cast and crew, everybody. Like I don't know if they knew how like just influential and important this movie would be when they made it, but like it's really stood the test of time, and I think it's only gotten better. I would honestly love to go rewatch this in theaters for like the re-release next month. Um, just for the hell of it. Honestly, I haven't seen this movie in theaters, and it would be such a fun vibe. I think, but
Mhm.
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I love this movie. I love everyone in it. The And one thing I love about some zombie movies is like when it's isolated to just like one thing, but they think it's like all over the world. So like, gotta love when a zombie movie ends with like, oh no, it's all taken care of. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really wasn't a big deal.
It didn't
It was
have
Exactly.
like
like a
6 months.
super,
It was right on the
ominous or ambiguous
exact-
ending. You got some
Good
where it's just
mom.
like, right. Or like, hey, I've handled my neighborhood, but now here's like this swarm that are coming toward me and I'm helpless.
Yeah.
But we're out of time and film, so
Yeah,
Exactly. I love that aspect of any
or
kind of
one of the
zombie
worst
movie.
being like The Mist, where, the guy kind of makes the terrible decision of
Oh God. Oh
killing his
yeah.
that right as the help shows up. Just like,
Yeah. That
oh
was that
man.
was horrible. That was one of those endings
Yeah.
that was just like, what the hell, man? Why'd you do that to me?
Such a
If you
downer.
waited like 10 seconds, dude.
Yeah.
But no, just like Marco
As,
said,
as
this
for my
movie.
rating, I'm
Oh,
as for my rating, I'm gonna go with Steven here. I'm going with an 8.5, very high 8.5. I think this is one of the most rewatchable, enjoyable horror comedy hybrids of our time. A whole lot of people have tried to balance that tone. I think one of the only ones that came close was Zombieland, which perfectly kind of encapsulates. That's like American Shaun of the Dead for us, because it
That's
balances the
valid,
joke.
yeah.
Right.
It balances these jokes with this legit kind of scary premise, but like with these
With
leads,
a few
Simon Pegg and Nick
emotional
Frost.
scenes to kind of give a little bit of serious tone to it as well.
Exactly,
Right.
and
Yeah.
with that same ensemble of Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, and etc. Same you see with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and all of these great comedians just at the top of their game, just
Mhm.
really killing it. And like as we said, 20 years on, this has become a pop culture landmark. The UK loves it. I think it was BBC Radio, like they ranked it number 2 favorite films ever, number 1 behind Shawshank. So
Wow.
the Brits really love this movie. And as you see, somebody every Halloween outfit is gonna. It's the easiest Halloween outfit. Just put some red dye on your shirt, get a tie, get a little headband on. There you go, you're Sean.
Just
So
throw a bit of
There
red
you
on
go.
it.
yeah, you got some red on.
You
You
got red
know
on you.
exactly. So the quotes still hold up. The gags still hold. Like you find something new. There's a new Easter egg with these movies every time you watch it. Like oh, that song he's playing on the radio. It's called Zombie Nation. Just little things like that. Like the restaurant Fulci's, the place with all the fish. It's named after Lucio Fulci, director of great zombie Italian films. He directed the movie Where a Zombie Fights a Shark. Please look that up. But this is
That
like
sounds awesome.
it's a labor of love by
Incredible.
nerds who love horror, who get horror, who love comedy, and are shameless about it. And we will see that carry on throughout his films as we continue this director's dive next week with Hot Fuzz. Oh my God, I'm so excited. This is
I'm
going to be
very
a
excited for that
fantastic
one.
year.
me too.
Yes. And of course, we won't just be doing a director's dive. We're going to be asking guys some questions down the line, maybe some fun reviews, maybe some fun news updates. If there's a trailer coming out, we'll all watch it, talk about it, shoot the shit. But as for right now, I want to thank my guests. I want to thank Stephen Dinkins. I want to thank Brandon Horn. I want to thank Tim Reyes. I want to thank you for watching. This is only the beginning. I cannot wait to share what we have in store for you guys. I'm so excited to get this show going, and I'm excited for you guys to see where we go from here. So, from everybody's a critic, we are signing off. I'm Jamarco Shaw, and thank you so much for tuning in.
Bye,
everybody. Peace.
Have a beautiful time.